They say home is where the heart is. Apparently, for some people, it's also where the rock collection, the imaginary business empire, and the world's most ill-advised investment opportunity live rent-free. These are the folks who looked at decades of hard work, steady payments, and generational stability and said, yeah, let's trade all that for a shiny idea that fits in a glove box. And trust me, the rock isn't even the worst one. It gets way dumber from here. 1. A man in Utah actually mortgaged his house to buy a single, one-of-a-kind boulder. Why? Because he believed it was spiritually aligned with his destiny. No, not a diamond, not gold, just a rock. An actual rock that weighed more than his pickup truck and slightly less than his common sense. He said it gave him energy. I'm sure it did. Mostly the kind that drains from your soul when the bank repossesses your home. The rock is now sitting in a storage yard valued at $0. But hey, it's probably still buzzing with the mystical aura of unpaid property taxes. 2. Somewhere in Florida, because of course it's Florida, a couple took out a second mortgage to invest in an emotionally intelligent robot that could trade cryptocurrency. This was during the crypto gold rush, when every scam had the word AI slapped on it like a magic sticker. The robot was supposed to analyze vibes on Twitter and make millionaire-level decisions. Spoiler, it analyzed its way straight into bankruptcy. The couple lost everything, but the robot apparently learned something valuable: how to disappear right after payday. 3. In Las Vegas, a man mortgaged his home to enter a high-stakes poker tournament to win it all back. Because nothing screams sound financial planning like using your literal house as an entry fee for a game based entirely on luck and regret. He made it 3 rounds before losing to a guy wearing Crocs and sunglasses shaped like flamingos. He walked out homeless but spiritually rich in experience and debt. 4. A woman in California mortgaged her house to fund a wellness retreat she found on Instagram. It promised spiritual detox through the power of expensive smoothies. She envisioned a holistic paradise. What she got was a tent in the desert, a shared bucket for showers, and a group leader named Sparrow, who turned out to be a guy from Ohio named Steve. Her chakras didn't align, but her credit score definitely flatlined. 5. In 2007, one man mortgaged his home to invest in Beanie Babies. Yes, those plush creatures that were supposed to be the next gold standard. He stored them in airtight bins, convinced they'd make him a millionaire. Fast forward to today, the bins are still airtight, and so is his bank account. You have to admire the commitment. He didn't buy stocks, land, or gold. He bet the house on a stuffed moose named Chocolate. 6. A man in New Jersey mortgaged his house to buy front-row tickets to every Taylor Swift concert on a single world tour. His reasoning? They'll be worth millions one day. He was half right. They were expensive. He just forgot that once the show ends, they're worth less than the confetti on the floor. Now he lives in his car, but at least it's filled with friendship bracelets and regret. 7. A British couple mortgaged their home to buy a plot of land on the moon. They said it was an investment in the future. The problem? You can't actually own lunar real estate. It's like buying a timeshare in a dream. The paperwork looked legit until they realized it was printed on regular printer paper and signed by someone named Commander Galaxy. They now technically own a piece of outer space, which is fitting, because that's exactly where their money went. 8. One man mortgaged his home to start a dog psychic hotline. His pitch: owners can call, and I'll tell them what their dogs are thinking. The business model collapsed immediately when people realized their dogs were thinking, "Feed me," and stop calling this man. He spent $150,000 building a psychic connection chamber that was just a closet with incense. Now, he communicates with creditors instead. 9. A couple in Arizona mortgaged their home to fund their dream of breeding designer miniature horses. The problem? Their horses kept growing. Turns out, miniature was a promise made by a breeder with a very flexible definition of size. Within a year, their yard looked like a Clydesdale convention, and they were shoveling more debt than manure. 10. A man mortgaged his house to buy a rare, haunted doll off eBay, claiming it would make him famous. He posted videos of it moving on its own, which mostly looked like bad stop-motion animation. The doll never went viral, but his financial collapse sure did. He ended up selling the doll back online at a loss to the same guy who sold it to him. Honestly, at that point, the haunting was financial. 11. Someone mortgaged their house to invest in a revolutionary water that hydrates on a molecular level. It was just water, tap water, but bottled in a sleek, futuristic design and sold for $20 a liter. The company promised quantum hydration. I don't know what that means, but I do know he's now 100% hydrated and 200% broke. 12. A retired couple mortgaged their home to start a YouTube channel where they'd pan for gold and strike it rich. After 2 years, they found about $11 worth of gold flakes and spent $230,000 on cameras, travel, and matching gold grandpa jackets. They now live in an RV, still panning for views instead of gold. 13. A man in Texas mortgaged his house to open an energy drink for dogs startup. The product slogan? Unleash the Beast. Within months, the FDA unleashed an actual investigation. Turns out, caffeine and poodles don't mix. He lost his company, his home, and his dignity. But hey, those were some very energetic lawsuits. 14. In 2014, a man mortgaged his house to buy into an exclusive cryptocurrency for dentists. It was called Dentacoin. The pitch? Revolutionized the dental industry. The result? Gum disease for his finances. The coin now trades at fractions of a cent, and he can't even afford toothpaste. Truly poetic. 15. A woman mortgaged her home to fund her passion project, a cat cafe for hairless cats. The problem? People don't actually want to drink lattes surrounded by creatures that look like plucked turkeys. The cafe closed after 3 months, and she's still paying off the espresso machine she used exactly 9 times. 16. One man mortgaged his house to build his own private escape room business. His unique twist? No clues, no hints, just a locked door and pure chaos. Turns out, customers don't enjoy paying $40 to panic in the dark for 3 hours. The only person truly trapped was him, by debt and his own marketing. 17. A man mortgaged his house to buy an unopened original bottle of Crystal Pepsi as a collectible. He said it was an investment in nostalgia, which is ironic because nostalgia is the only thing he has left. When he tried to sell it years later, the bottle had leaked and the liquid turned brown. So yes, it aged. Like milk, not money. 18. A man in Ohio mortgaged his home to fund his lifelong dream of creating a board game better than Monopoly. It was called Debt Quest, where players compete to refinance their fictional mortgages before bankruptcy. You know, family fun. He printed thousands of copies and waited for toy stores to start calling. They didn't. Turns out, no one wanted to spend Friday night role-playing the exact financial misery they were already living. He now owns about 4,000 unsold boxes stacked in his garage, a perfect visual metaphor for irony. Somewhere, Milton Bradley is laughing in capitalist heaven. 19. A woman in Los Angeles mortgaged her condo to buy a purebred micropig for $12,000. Because apparently bacon is more valuable when it's tiny and lives indoors. The breeder promised it would stay teacup-sized forever. It did not. Within a year, her beloved pocket pig weighed 350 pounds and ate the kitchen cabinets. She tried to rebrand it as an emotional support boar, but the HOA wasn't impressed. She lost her condo, but on the bright side, she now owns the most expensive ham sandwich in California. 20. A man in Canada mortgaged his house to build a replica of the Titanic in his backyard, complete with dining rooms, tiny lifeboats, and apparently zero irony. He said it was a symbol of human ambition, which is funny because it also became a symbol of human foreclosure. The replica was half finished when he ran out of money, leaving behind a giant wooden hull filled with regret. Local kids call it the ship of poor decisions, which feels about right. 21. Someone mortgaged their home to buy a rare NFT of a cartoon banana wearing sunglasses. They said it was digital art that will outlive the Mona Lisa. 6 months later, the NFT market collapsed, and the banana was worth less than an actual banana. At least with a real one, you can make banana bread. This one just rots silently in a crypto wallet, an eternal monument to modern stupidity. 22. A man in Texas mortgaged his ranch to build the world's largest backyard fireworks display. He said he wanted to put his town on the map. He did, under the category Local Man Sets Pasture and Ego Ablaze. The fire department called it an uncontrolled explosion of both pyrotechnics and poor judgment. He's now living in a trailer, but don't worry, he still has the title of most dramatic 4th of July ever. 23. A couple mortgaged their house to open a restaurant that only served avocado toast. They said it was a minimalist concept. The problem is, minimalism doesn't work well when you're charging $19 for one menu item. Within months, the business folded, proving that millennials aren't ruining the housing market. Bad business ideas are. They tried rebranding as a wellness cafe, but apparently, wellness doesn't taste great without bacon. 24. A man mortgaged his home to buy a professional-grade flamethrower because he thought he could start a creative snow removal business. His first and only customer was his neighbor, whose driveway and car caught fire simultaneously. When the police asked him what he thought would happen, he replied, "I didn't expect the fire to be so fiery." He lost the house, but on the plus side, his Yelp reviews are lit. Literally. 25. A woman mortgaged her home to produce her own inspirational music album, despite having never written, recorded, or sung anything in her life. She called it The Sound of Manifestation. When she finally released it on Spotify, it got 6 total plays, 5 from her, 1 from her mom. The label dropped her immediately, and now she's manifesting a place to live. It's like A Star is Born, but the star is bankrupt and tone deaf. 26. A man mortgaged his house to fund a flat Earth expedition. The goal was to prove the planet was a pancake by sailing to the edge. His boat broke down 12 miles from shore. He blamed government weather manipulation. When reporters asked if he'd try again, he said, "Absolutely. The truth must be found." Unfortunately, the only thing he found was the limit of his credit score. 27. A couple mortgaged their house to open a luxury spa for reptiles. That's right, massages for snakes, mani-pedis for iguanas, aromatherapy for turtles. They said it was the future of pet wellness. It wasn't. Turns out, reptiles don't really crave lavender-scented body scrubs. Within months, the only creature still enjoying the spa was a lizard that wandered in by accident. They went bankrupt. But that lizard? Glowing. Skin. 28. A man mortgaged his home to create a theme park for introverts. The idea was a quiet park with minimal social contact. He built meditation pods, a soundproof cafe, and a rule that no one could speak above a whisper. Unfortunately, no one showed up because introverts, by definition, stay home. The park closed within weeks, making it the most accurate business model ever accidentally created. 29. A woman mortgaged her house to buy a psychic cat she found online. The seller promised the feline could predict lottery numbers. It could not. In fact, the only thing it predicted correctly was her eventual eviction. She claimed the cat stopped working after I doubted its powers. Yeah, that's usually how scams work. Now, she does tarot readings for other people's pets. The circle of nonsense continues. 30. A man in Oregon mortgaged his house to open a museum of cursed objects. He said it would attract tourists and supernatural investigators. It attracted 1 tourist and 0 income. His prized exhibit was a haunted stapler that occasionally jammed. When the bank finally foreclosed, he insisted the ghost did it. Sure, buddy. I'm sure the poltergeist also signed the mortgage paperwork. 31. A man mortgaged his house to buy a decommissioned tank from an online auction. His plan was to rent it out for weddings. Because nothing says eternal love like posing next to a war machine. He couldn't afford insurance, the city banned it, and he ended up parking the tank on his front lawn, where it became a neighborhood landmark called Divorce Incoming. 32. A couple mortgaged their home to start an artisan ice business that sold hand-carved ice cubes for cocktails. They called it Glacial Luxury. Each cube was carved, shaped, and individually packaged for $5 apiece. The business collapsed the moment customers realized that regular ice is both cheaper and free. The couple lost their home, but don't worry, they kept their integrity and frostbite. 33. A man mortgaged his home to fund a revolutionary invention that turned out to be a fork with Bluetooth. He called it the Smart Fork, claiming it would track your eating habits. It didn't. It just beeped when you ate too fast, which is exactly what shame already does for free. Investors fled, the company collapsed, and the fork now sits on eBay next to other relics of terrible ideas. 34. Finally, a man in Nevada mortgaged his house to start his own theme restaurant based entirely on The Matrix. Every waiter wore sunglasses indoors, every dish had a red pill garnish, and he refused to serve anyone who didn't believe in simulation theory. The restaurant closed in 2 weeks when customers realized the food was cold, and the owner was insane. He now claims the restaurant still exists, just in another reality. 35. A man in Colorado mortgaged his home to buy a life-size animatronic T-Rex. He said it would attract tourists to his property and turn his backyard into Jurassic Park 2.0. The only thing it attracted was noise complaints and a divorce. The neighbors didn't appreciate being greeted every morning by a motion-sensor dinosaur that screamed loud enough to trigger car alarms. Eventually, he tried to rent it out for kids' birthdays, but it malfunctioned mid-party and ate half the cake. Now, the T-Rex stands silent, looming over a foreclosure sign, a monument to one man's prehistoric sense of business. 36. A woman in Arizona mortgaged her house to go viral. Her grand plan? A 24-hour live stream of herself meditating in silence while sitting on an inflatable flamingo in her pool. She called it digital stillness. She even hired a PR team. The stream peaked at 13 viewers, 11 of them spam bots. After 2 days of sunburn, dehydration, and 0 sponsorships, she shut it down. She lost her house but gained 17 Instagram followers. Truly, the ROI of a digital visionary. 37. A guy in Seattle mortgaged his home to create an app that helped users locate their lost aura. I wish I were joking. The app used your phone's camera to scan your spiritual field and tell you if your energy was misplaced. It charged $9.99 a month to remind you that you're tired and broke. Investors bailed, users left bad reviews like, "My aura didn't load," and the man lost both his funding and his faith. On the bright side, his aura is now very visible, because bankruptcy glows differently. 38. A man mortgaged his home to buy a private island off Craigslist, which, yes, is already a sentence that should concern you. He never actually visited the island, just wired the money to someone named Captain Doug. The island, shockingly, did not exist. The coordinates led to open ocean. When authorities told him it was a scam, he said, "Well, technically it's still my ocean." I guess in a way, he's right. He bought nothing, and that's exactly what he owns. 39. A couple in Florida mortgaged their house to build a pirate-themed Airbnb. Every room was decorated with skulls, fake cannons, and a replica ship cabin made from IKEA furniture. They even greeted guests dressed as pirates yelling "Armady" upon check-in. Reviews called it the loudest nightmare in hospitality. It shut down within months when someone fell off the fake plank and sued. They tried to reopen as a nautical retreat, but by then, the ship had sailed, straight into debt. 40. A man mortgaged his home to prove time travel was real. His method? Building a chronometric acceleration chamber out of an old tanning bed and several microwaves. He even posted a Kickstarter titled "Send Me Back to 1997." He raised $300, most of it from people hoping he'd actually disappear. The machine blew out the power grid on day 1, and he now owes the city thousands. Ironically, his finances did go back in time, to the Stone Age. 41. A woman mortgaged her home to buy 400 gallons of holy water from a televangelist who said it could wash away debt. She thought it was metaphorical. It wasn't. The preacher delivered 55 blue drums of water that smelled like bleach and bad intentions. When she asked for a refund, he said, "God doesn't do returns." The only thing that got cleansed was her savings account. On the plus side, her gardens never looked holier. 42. A man mortgaged his home to start a celebrity impersonator academy. He promised to train the next generation of Elvises, Monroes, and Johnny Depps. The problem? His only client was a guy who thought he looked like Shrek. The business lasted 3 months, after which the man claimed Hollywood just wasn't ready for this level of authenticity. He's right. It wasn't ready, it wasn't interested, and it definitely wasn't enrolling. 43. A couple in New York mortgaged their brownstone to buy 25 vintage vending machines. Their plan was to fill them with artisan snacks and place them around the city. Unfortunately, the snacks melted, the machines jammed, and half the customers thought it was a prank. When they tried to rebrand as retro food art installations, the city fined them for littering. The machines now sit in a warehouse, quietly dispensing shame. 44. A man in Louisiana mortgaged his house to fund his gator wrestling reality show. His pilot episode featured him wrestling what turned out to be a log, screaming, "She's a fighter." before realizing the log wasn't moving. The clip went viral, but not in the way he hoped. The production shut down after the first shoot, but hey, at least he got his 15 minutes of fame and a lifelong ban from Animal Planet. 45. A woman mortgaged her house to buy a rare cursed diamond that she saw on a paranormal auction site. The seller warned her it would bring misfortune. She said she could handle it. 2 weeks later, her car broke down, her business failed, and her fiancé left. She still insists the diamond is worth it for the story, which it is, just not $250,000 worth. Somewhere, the seller is probably laughing from his new yacht, which definitely isn't cursed. 46. A man mortgaged his home to build an underground bunker for when robots take over. He stocked it with canned beans, vintage comic books, and 20 years worth of instant noodles. His wife left, his neighbors mocked him, and after 5 years of waiting for the AI apocalypse, he emerged, just in time to realize ChatGPT can't even fold laundry. Now the bunker's on Airbnb under the listing, post-apocalyptic chic. 47. A guy in Michigan mortgaged his house to buy 1,000 limited edition fidget spinners during the 2017 craze. He called it a once-in-a-generation investment. He was half right. It was definitely a once-in-a-generation level of idiocy. By the time they arrived, the fad was over. He tried rebranding them as stress relief collectibles. The only person who needed stress relief was his lender. Somewhere, a Beanie Baby investor is nodding in solidarity. 48. A woman mortgaged her home to clone her dead cat, twice. The company charged her $50,000 each time, and both clones came out looking off. One had 3 different colored eyes, the other had the personality of a printer error. When asked if it was worth it, she said, "It's not the same, but it's close." Yeah, close. If close means a genetic horror show that hisses at mirrors. 49. A man mortgaged his house to start a luxury balloon rental business. You heard that right? He believed people would pay top dollar to rent helium balloons for Instagram photos. Within a month, his warehouse was full of deflated inventory and regret. He pivoted to selling them as eco-conscious balloon alternatives, which was just another way of saying trash. His website tagline now reads, "Deflating expectations since 2020." 50. A couple mortgaged their home to join a private Mars colony program that promised to send humans to space by 2025. They paid $300,000 in training fees, quit their jobs, and moved into a desert simulation camp. The company folded a year later when investors realized its rocket prototype was just a modified RV. They now live in that same RV, still wearing the spacesuits, insisting they're waiting for launch clearance. I'm sure they are. 51. And finally, the crowning jewel of financial genius, a man in California mortgaged his $800,000 home to buy an invisible sculpture. The artist claimed it exists in the mind of the viewer. Translation: he bought nothing, literally nothing. He proudly displayed it in his living room, pointing at empty space like a toddler explaining imaginary friends. When reporters asked why, he said, "It's conceptual art about belief." He's right. It perfectly symbolizes the belief that stupidity can be infinite. Congratulations, sir. You didn't just buy air. You bought the essence of bad decisions, the ultimate investment in nothing. And there you have it, an entire civilization's worth of financial faceplants. Proof that somewhere out there, common sense is still on vacation. Hit like if your wallet's feeling personally attacked. Subscribe if you want front row seats to the next round of glorious disasters. And tell me, which one deserves the crown for absolute financial stupidity?